Hello everyone, and I hope you're doing well. Today we're talking about a policy change that Konami have recently put out that has been controversial, to say the least. Now, those of you that don't know, I will explain what this policy change is and what it implies. So Konami have recently put out a update on kind of YCSs and events as big as that. Now, a lot of us EU players got a bit debated because we haven't heard anything on EU YCSs for the past 8 months. So a lot of us thought this would finally be an update to say what's actually happening with those. But no, it was pretty much the complete opposite. To put it simply, this policy stops any players in these big events, be it YCSs, WCQs, from using custom sleeves and mats. Now, to be a bit more specific, you are not allowed to use any design that is not officially Konami's. So if you use a Konami mat with a design on it, that's fine. You can also use kind of blank sleeves and mats from other suppliers. As long as there's no patterns or designs on there, then that's perfectly legal now. But the big question is, why? The official answer from Konami says that this is an effort to reduce the amount of time judges are spending analysing people's mats and sleeves to decide whether they're appropriate for tournament play. Whilst this does make some sense, I do see you all out there with your nude Dark Magician Girl mats. Just ignore my mat as well. But whilst I see their point, that was already in the policy. But why is this a bad change? Why are people upset with this? Well, for anyone out there that has custom mats, sleeves, anything like that, you can now no longer bring them to your big events. Now, whilst this may be a mild inconvenience for some players, I know a lot of players have some very expensive accessories, like Spellground mats, for example. They're very popular, usually go for at least a couple hundred, and similar with sleeves and such. There's a lot of money going into these accessories, and now we can't use them at the biggest tournaments where it really matters. But not only do people spend a lot of money and treasure these kind of accessories, but the official Konami ones are absolutely trash. The sleeves fall apart or stick together after maybe a couple of local sessions. The mats seem to fall apart at the seams, not to mention they catch your card sleeves, which damages them even more. At the end of the day, if Konami had good quality products on the same level as the community products, then people would be using them by choice, but instead, they force you to use it. Now, this isn't such a big issue for big events like a YCS or WCQ just because they give you a mat on entry, but it does mean you can't use the ones you're used to and you've bought and invested in over the many years of playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on here for a second. Not only does this change not really make sense because it was already in the rules that you can't use naughty playmats at kind of big events, but we believe it could be to try and boost Konami playmat and cosmetic sales. Because these are so low quality, you don't really want to buy them over anything else if you're in the know. So I think they've done this so people are forced to buy the official mats and sleeves just so they can boost the sales a little bit for these big events. Now, as I say, that is tinfoil hat. Obviously, they're not going to come out and say that. And of course, they do give you the event sleeves and mats, but yeah, I think that is one thing to consider with this policy change, because otherwise it doesn't make too much sense. Another annoying thing about this is that if you don't have an alternative, you will have to use the event entry, mat, and sleeves. And I'll branch off onto another issue quickly, which is the pricing. Now, the pricing is so bad for Yu-Gi-Oh! Big events that a lot of the time people will take the mats and the sleeves from the events and sell those on as a form of prize. Now, if you're forced to use them, you can't sell those on, so you've just lost another prize for going to these big events, which just sucks. Like, it just feels like a shot in the foot to the players for no exact reason other than it looks like it's for boosting profits. But the big issue for me, and I'm sure it's a big issue for a lot of people out there as well, is the companies and people that are making these custom playmats, custom sleeves, that make a livelihood off selling them. Because now what? They're still going to get sales, I'm sure. People will still pick them up because, I mean, they're high quality and a lot of people only play at a local or casual level. But for a lot of competitive players, those options are now off the table, and we know Yu-Gi-Oh! Players like to spend a lot of money, so if that money isn't going there, then what are they going to do? I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of smaller or even bigger cosmetic companies start to either drop Yu-Gi-Oh or produce less stuff, like, or just close. That's the worst case for, especially for the smaller companies or even just like solo people that are just doing it all by themselves. Those sales are going to drop drastically, and I don't think Konami's considered that there is such an industry around selling these cosmetics, but yeah, I think it's just a malicious change that's going to cause a lot of people headaches and issues for something that, at the end of the day, isn't going to save that much time. Because, I mean, the judges are still going to need to check your sleeves if called. Because you can still have marked sleeves on official Konami sleeves. And what happens if someone pulls up a mat that doesn't have an official Yu-Gi-Oh logo on it, but was like a prize mat? You know, there's all these sort of issues that are now going to come up. And rule sharks are going to have an absolute field day. So what now? A lot of people are saying that if you go to these big events, just ignore the rule, just bring your own stuff. If enough people bring their own stuff, then they can't DQ like 100 or 1,000 people from an event. And my thought is, what if they do? I don't think it's past Konami to try and heavy-handedly force this, especially if there's profits involved. If there is money involved in getting people to buy the official cosmetics, they will take this seriously. And for players like me, even if I don't believe they would take action, why would I risk it? I've made it all the way to this big tournament. I've probably paid for flights. I've probably paid for accommodation. And I'm here to play for a good weekend in a competitive environment. The last thing I want is to show up, go through the door, show my Stolas mat, and immediately get kicked out. But for now, if you're like me, we may have to go back to the OG best mat ever made. The kitchen roll. Overall, I do think this is a terrible change from Konami. Yes, I understand why they've done it, so per se, just to save some judge time and organising the event, but it does feel like there's a lot of unintended consequences that Konami has not considered. But let me know down in the comments, what do you think of this policy change? Do you think Konami has done this maliciously to increase profits, or do you think it was just to save time and they haven't considered the consequences? Or do you think this is fine, that this is a much weighted change that has needed to happen for a long time? Anyway, that being said, if you made it this far in the video, please do feel free to hit subscribe, new Yu-Gi-Oh videos each week, and as always, happy dueling.